Yeah, good morning and welcome to day 2 for me as well. The first day, second day, first talk this morning. I'm excited to get you some introduction into what we call edge delivery services, formerly known as Franklin. You might not hear the term Franklin from me so often because we have the recent name change. And I will give you some introduction in this topic, and throughout the day, I think there will be a few more sessions focusing on real-life project implementations and other use cases, what you can actually do with edge delivery services and with our new document-based authoring capabilities. A few words about me. So for those who don't know me, I'm Markus Haack, software engineer at the AEM Sites team. The years before here at adaptTo, I mostly spoke about AEM commerce and SIF integration framework and these kind of topics, but I moved recently, a year ago, to Franklin and to Franklin Engineering and doing now projects together with edge delivery services together with our customers. The menu for this intro talk, so I would like to give you a high-level overview of what actually is edge delivery services in AEM Sites. Then we dig deeper a little bit into document-based authoring, and I'll show you how you actually use this to build and structure the websites and the experience you build. And then last is actually building the actual experience and focus on how you can build fast and impactful experiences for your customer and for your projects. So, quick question, can you give a hands up? Who has seen this diagram in one or the other format before? Maybe a few, 10%. Who has heard the term Franklin before? That's already way more. Okay, so what you see here, is it Franklin? And the answer is yes and no. Franklin is portions or parts of it, what you see here. What we call edge delivery services is actually the area here in the middle. And that is our new cloud-based delivery stack, which is Adobe built over the last 2 years, which we provide to our customers. And it's decoupled from the actually CMS, it's decoupled from the actually content sources. And this is the big difference if you heard about Franklin before. Franklin was usually used in the context of edge delivery services together with some authoring in Word and SharePoint. And we basically draw a line now and decouple this a little bit more so that you can have the delivery provided by Adobe independent from your CBS capabilities. If you look inside the box, what's actually provided as what we call edge delivery services? It's a storage area, what we call the content hub, and this is basically where all your published content in a raw format is living. This means it's structured, unstructured content, any kind of data, APIs, a contact list, a location list is more structured. All the websites itself, it's the unstructured content. In what form? For each and every web page, we have basically one document in the content tab. It also stores assets and media, images, PDFs, all kinds of files you want to deliver, and it stores code. Code in this box means it's the client-side code which is getting delivered to your users, to the end user, to the browser. So typically JavaScript and CSS, which is then needed to be shipped to the browser, is there as well. On top of this, we have our edge delivery pipeline and our rendering stack. And this is basically pretty simple. The request comes in. If the website the user is looking for is already cached and rendered before, it's delivered by the CDN. And if not, our cloud-based, function-based pipeline is running on the edge nodes of the CDN providers. It's getting the content, rendering the HTML, and sending it back to the browser. Technically, if you open that box, we follow a sort of a dual stack approach. And this thing is basically implemented twice. It's totally transparent for the customer. We have one stack that's running on AWS, so the storage is S3, Azure functions, Lambda functions, and the CDN we provide for this is Fastly. And we have a second stack, which is in parallel for the super unlikely case that there are some issues with global CDN, which is usually not happen, but it happened at least once in the past that Fastly had some global outage, not just 1 or 2 hubs had issues. So we have a second stack, which is running on Cloudflare infrastructure. For your projects, this is absolutely black box, and you cannot even the site. It's Adobe infrastructure taking care, routing the request to one stack or the other, depending on load and failover and so on. This is for the delivery part. So how do we actually get content into the Edge delivery and how do we get content published? One option you all know, AEM offering. So you can connect your AEM offer to the stack, publish like you are used to publish, and instead of sending it to the publishers, it's sending the data, the published data to the Edge. It's the same publishing events the AEM publisher is using, it's just a different subscriber which gets the publishing events as well and injecting the data to the Edge. Or, and this is what I focus today, you can use our new document-based offering capabilities. Document-based offering, what actually is this? This is using Word, Excel, or if you go with the Google stack, it's Google Docs and Google Sheets to offer your websites. This sounds scary at the beginning, it was the same for me 1.5 years ago, but it's actually, business users really like this, because if you look into your projects, if you ask your business people how they actually build their website, it's very often that the business people somewhere in a department creates a Word document, sends it to the guys operating the websites, the marketing people maybe do a review. This all happens on SharePoint, and then ultimately there's some poor person who is taking the Word document and enters this in the CMS. So why not actually cutting this path and letting the business people creating the website directly using Word documented tools they anyway use, moving all the review processes to the tools they anyway use because that's all built into SharePoint and Google, and they can use the tools they are actually used to work on the day-to-day business. This brings me to sort of a few key benefits, and it's maybe the only marketing-ish slide I have here. So bear with me. So why do we believe this is actually a good idea? And this is the 3 main areas which we think we can make a huge impact on your projects, on the customers. First is performance. We know from studies we did, from studies other companies did, and agencies and public documents out there, that a performant website has definitely some impact on your users, has an impact on the business KPIs. And what you use to measure this, it's what you're hearing over the day and also yesterday a lot. It's Lighthouse scoring, it's Core Web Vitals, and this is what we are looking for. So we optimize the performance out of the box with the starter templates we give you, with the tools around we give you, that you can get 100% of Lighthouse score from the beginning, from the first commit to the last commit to go live. How do we do this? This is the box number 3. We give you the tools for you and for your developer to build the websites as fast as possible and easy as possible. And we have the tools around there. We have checks as part of the Git commits, which check your Lighthouse score on each and every commit, which before you merge, basically everything is checked, and only if everything is green and the Lighthouse scores, the SEO values, the accessibility checks all are green, you can actually merge it and get it into production. Also, ease of use for the developer. Another aspect is we try to keep this as simple as possible, and you will hear a lot later in my talk and also the other talk about JavaScript and CSS, and that's basically it. All you need to build an experience in the website with the new stack is JavaScript and CSS. We don't force you to go with any frameworks. There's no binding to React or Vue or whatever. If you want to, you're free to add them on top, but our recommendation is, at least for the classic corporate websites with a lot of marketing content, product pages, whatever, showing up your services, having maybe press release and all this kind of stuff that you have on a typical corporate website, there's no need to add an extra framework or any extra thing. Because usually the first thing what happens if you add an extra framework, it's getting you a bunch of extra kilobytes in dependencies, which you ship to your browsers, the browser of your users each and every time. So that's why we opt in for something without any framework. If there is a good need and good reasons to use something extra, and you will see this in later talk, a few use cases when Markus is on stage, we added pre-React for good reasons, and that works as well. And the box in the middle, that's the box which I already touched a little bit before, that's for your offers. That the offers basically can get started with creating content basically immediately. You open your Word document with a blank sheet, you start typing, and you are ready with your website. As simple as that. There's no need for learning a CMS, there's no need to create accounts by IT for the CMS system and onboarding and training, this kind of stuff. And the good news for all the engineers and the IT guys, also the operation. The operation is taken care of by Adobe, since the stack is hosted by Adobe as a cloud service. You don't need to take care about the operations, not for running the system and also not the operations for development. So there's no CI/CD pipeline you need to maintain. There's no complicated Webpack scripts and configuration you need to maintain, etc. Speaking about the offers first, how does it actually look like for a project if you go with document-based offering? These are basically the tools you need for your business people. And I put the Microsoft icons here, but it can also be the Google icons, doesn't really matter. So for everything which is going to be a website, we use Word. This can be a product page, this can be just a simple blog post, this can be your list of press releases, the homepage as well, etc. This is going to be stored in a Word document or in a template which is then used to render the web page as a Word document. Everything which is more structured is going into sheets and workbooks. This can be a list of locations. If you have a store site where you have all your stores and location addresses, this can be a contact list, whatever. Any kind of more data, structured data goes into sheets. We use it as well for a few more technical elements. So we building automatically an index of pages, we call page lists, where you can then, which can then be queried in your site. If you want to, for example, render a list of press releases or a list of events, they can be automatically created. And we also use this for stuff like managing bulk metadata. If you want to have stuff injected in the header of each and every page across the site or a sub-area of the site, you can manage multiple metadata elements in a sheet, or redirects, vanity URLs, these kind of things go into sheet as well. And what we try to encourage is customers using some collaboration tools like Slack or Teams, because part of the success story of the entire new stack is the deep collaboration between the developers and the business people from the beginning. And this helps you in the project to also get faster and quicker go lives, because the authors can already create content, starting opening Word, starting creating the content, while the developers are still building out the styles, still building out the so-called blocks, which I come to in a second. And this can happen in parallel, and via this parallelization, obviously you save a lot of time in getting your project and your site live. Let's assume we want to edit a website. This is our documentation landing page, and we want to edit this page. What you get is we install, that's actually the only tool the business people need to install, is the so-called Sidekick, which is the gray bar at the top, which is a small browser plugin we have for all major browsers. And it automatically detects if you are on a site which is rendered by Edge Delivery Services, and then it opens automatically, or you can open it via click via a button, and from there you can click Edit. And based on the config of the project, it automatically knows, okay, the content of this page is backed by either Google or Word, and it automatically will open in a new tab, will open your Google documents or your Microsoft Word in the browser. So you don't need to care as a business people actually, how do I find the content, how do I navigate in a large content tree, how do I find the source. You just go to the website itself, click on edit, and you can edit it. What you then get is a normal Word document. It's a little bit structured, and you will see some of these tables, what we call blocks, which I explain later a little bit. You do the changes of the content, and assuming you are done, then you click on preview. By clicking on preview, you open a new tab, and what happens is we generate you a preview URL, which is unique for this page, and where you can preview the new experience on a preview URL, which is only accessible to you or your business people and your authors, which is not public. You can preview it. This is a special domain. At the moment, it's hlx.page. In the future, it will be aem.page. And what happens under the hood? If you actually click preview, what happens is the system will connect to your Google Drive account based on the project configuration. It knows what folder this document can be found, and it tracks the document from Google or SharePoint, depending on the project, and injects the content in what we call the so-called content bus. That's our cloud-based storage, and it puts this thing into a preview bucket. And with the preview bucket is basically if you open the URL in the browser or the tool opens it in a new tab for you, it's rendered out of the preview bucket. Once you are ready and you are okay with the experience and the review is done, you can click on Publish. And on Publish, what happens is this content is synced from the preview bucket into what we call the live bucket. And the live bucket is basically the storage for your real live website. If the document is new, it's a new published website, it's basically available, and the next time the requests come in, it's rendered and stored on the CDN. If it was rendered before and it's an update, then we trigger a CDN purge as well, that the next time the user is requesting the website, they're getting the freshly updated website. And optionally, we have an index bucket as well, which means if you configure an index and this page is supposed to be indexed, then we index the content and the fields you configure from this website as well, so you can later use this for retrieving the content via some queries. APIs we provide for that to retrieve and query a list of pages, or use this for building out your sitemap XML, or use this to send this to a search engine to index whatever you want to do for the use case. And with that, basically, the website is live. This is then, in our case, on the documentation side, it's hlx.live. The website is updated. In your project, that will be then your domain, obviously. And via these simple steps, clicking 4 buttons only, edit, preview, maybe editing again, and then clicking publish, your business users can update the site. As simple as that. If we look deeper a little bit, how actually do we structure and how do we work with the document-based authoring? On a file level, on a website level, the documents on the website is structured simply by putting files in the folder. This is like, you can imagine like working with an Explorer on your local machine. So every file name, with only one exception, which is the index, is mapped to the website name. So the about document on Google or SharePoint is mapped to the about website. If you want to use and create sub-areas, you can use folders, and the folders names obviously get mapped into then portions and path of the URL as well. The only difference is index. Index is always mapped to the root of the folder. So if you put this in the topmost folder, that is then the index will become your homepage. If you put an index document in somewhere in the folder, then the URL will become folder name / without any extra. And this is then served by the index document. And via this simple way, it's totally easy for your business users to structure the website, because the way how they create and organize the files, the way the website URL structure will look like. Additionally, because most likely you will not start on a green field, you will either migrate this from another system, or you have running campaigns, etc. You can have vanity URLs and redirect URLs in a so-called redirect sheet, where you configure basically a source and a target URL, and then the system takes care automatically. And this again doesn't need any developer to configure and create these redirects. The business user who can edit an Excel sheet can simply add the URLs there. Or when it's a migration project, you can import them from the old system, whatever. If we now look a little bit deeper from the document organization into the documents, and for this I would like to introduce you to a few concepts and terms. It's not many. The 3 most important ones from the concepts on how you work with the documents in the context of your website is what we call the default content, sections, and blocks. And let me explain them a little bit, and then later I have a few more. First is when you work with document-based authoring, the most important person is the business users and the authors. So the goal should be to make it as easy as possible for them to create a website, and the easiest way is they open a document and just start typing, adding images, creating lists, tables, whatever they want to create, they add it to the Word document. This should be the easiest way, and this should be the target we are trying to achieve. However, obviously, most websites are a little bit more structured. Like, let's say you want to build your homepage, and you have multiple areas which maybe have different elements, a hero video, some carousels, maybe different areas which have different backgrounds or animations and these kind of things. How do we actually build this? The first element is what we use for it is so-called sections. A section is simply a container which can be used to group certain elements of your website. And later, this is used to render a certain structure in the markup as well. So a section is a sort of an element to group things to each other. By default, if you, the author doesn't need to do anything, because by default, every document has one main section always. And all the content is in that section. And if this is fine for organization, the contents, let's say it's a simple press release page, which just has a little bit text, maybe an image, there's no need for adding extra stuff. But for more complex websites, grouping elements into section makes sense. Within a section, we have what we call the default content, and that's what I actually described. This is just whatever the author and the business people write into the document without giving extra attention. Just start writing. However, we have so-called blocks, and blocks we start introducing if you want to have something which is more complex, organized. Let's say you want to build a list of 3 or 4 cards next to each other, or you want to build a carousel. For more organized elements, you can introduce blocks, and a section can actually hold as many and whatever combination of these 2 elements. So you can have default content block followed by another default content. Multiple blocks, multiple default content areas can be within one section. This is the super high-level overview, and this is what you, in most cases, already good to build out your first website, and you should be ready within minutes to publish your website. Speaking about the blocks, because then it gets a little bit more technical, this is how a block can look like. So what actually is a block? You can compare a little bit it to a component in classic AEM. However, the blocks work a little bit differently from the usage and also from the development perspective. First, and again, I know this is repeating, keep it simple as possible. So only introduce a block if you really need it. We have other concepts like auto-blocking, which I come to in a second, which maybe give you the tools where you actually can avoid to add a block. However, if it makes sense and if it's a help for your business users, you can introduce a block. Make this block as easy as possible, like here in the screenshot, the columns block. For the author, if he is open a Word document and he sees this column block, you can immediately see what this block is doing. Obviously, it will render 3 columns, and each column gets an image, a sub-headline, and some text. Pretty easy to understand for every author, no training is needed, no extra questioning, what does this thing doing, how does it work, it's pretty obvious, and you can see immediately what it does. We have also, this is important more for the developer, but also business user, the so-called block options, which you can see here in the second screenshot. There is a little white in between, and the author can use a list of extra options. It can be one or multiple, put in brackets, and this gives the author the ability to tell a little bit more information actually how this block should behave. Like this one, you can guess it by the name, should be rendering a little bit more wider. You could have something like left, which makes everything left center, left aligned, or whatever the use case is. Or we have other blocks, like let's say you have a carousel, then you can put there a number, which is maybe the number of seconds when the carousel should rotate to the next item. One important element or information for the developers is blocks cannot be nested, so you cannot put one block into another block. Blocks are, as you've seen in the previous slide, are top-level elements within a section and cannot be put into each other. Speaking about the development, I also mentioned it. It's close to what we know from components in the AEM world. The big difference is it's way more lightweight, and especially for your front-end developers, way more easy to build, because the only thing you need on the coding side is JavaScript and CSS. And for the most pretty simple blocks, you maybe don't even need JavaScript, you just need CSS to give it some meaningful styling. Back to the authors, we want to make their life easier. And for that, we have a concept which is called auto-blocking. Imagine the author works with a document and you add a block, which is a little bit more complicated. Then maybe there's no way around, but maybe there are certain elements of the website you typically have, which technically requires you to have a block because you want to have extra JavaScript and extra behavior added to render it. But actually for the author, it's not so important. Like here in the screenshot, there's a little profile and social media icons added. If you write 20 blog pages, do you want to really always add this to your page? Maybe not. So you can make the life for the business user way more easier, and we use auto-blocking. And typical examples are hero elements like this one, or social media links you have somewhere in the sidebar, or latest news, stuff which you have repeating on multiple pages, but you don't want to have the author really think about it. How does it work? Let's take the hero as an example. So this is a screenshot of a document which is rendering a hero block, which is an image with a headline, and then the rendering, the headline is placed somewhere on top of the image with some nice styling, and then it's followed by some text and so on. Is this working? Absolutely, perfectly fine. We can structure and create our Word document like this, and can be rendered. There's nothing bad about it. But we can actually make this a little bit easier. In this case, we can simply skip the block. Technically, it's still a block, but for the author, this feels way more natural and feels way more intuitive, like this is the way how it works with a document anyway. And this is maybe the document you create today and send to a web department to copy this into AEM or whatever CMS you have. With auto-blocking, we can actually detect, hey, this is a headline, and there's an image before, and this combination we can detect and automatically on the code generate a block out of it. So for the developer, it's technically the same. It's the same code which is rendering the left and the right version, but for the author, it's still a little bit easier in terms of using it. A few other concepts I would like to quickly introduce before I come to the development part. One of them is metadata. We support two types of metadata. One is basically page metadata, pretty simple. Everything which is stored in an HTML head is called page metadata, so keywords, description, open graph elements, etc. They all go into page metadata elements. Metadata can be managed either directly, if it's specific to this website on the document, or if you have global metadata, which is injected into either the entire website or a sub-area of the website based on the URL scheme, you can configure metadata also in a bulk metadata sheet. We also support section metadata. Remember the section, if you have multiple sections in a document, you maybe want to give this section extra information, extra knowledge, what these sections are supposed to be, how they should render, how they should behave. And for that, we have section metadata. Typical use case is you want to have some extra, maybe you want to have an area on the site which should be gray, or another kind of background color, then you introduce a new section, give it metadata for some styling. And these metadata on a section is then either translated into classes, if it's styling, or into data attributes as part of the section. And whatever you do with the data attributes is then up to the project. We also support templates and themes. Both concepts are pretty close to each other. They are used for different use cases. Themes are typically, as the name sort of implies, is used for having some extra special styling, which is applied on a sub-area of your website, which gets extra styling, and then you can attach classes special to a theme. Template is similar to this one. The difference is we use templates mostly if you, additionally to styling, you want to have extra behavior and extra semantics of the page, then you can introduce an extra template. Basically, like imagine you have your normal corporate website, and then your marketing department wants to create you a few landing pages which look totally different, which are dedicated for some short-running campaign, then you can introduce templates as well. And they both actually go nicely together with auto-blocking. So good use case is, for example, you have your corporate website, and maybe you have a list of events when you have a trade show or conference, and then these events typically have a date, a location, these kind of things. And then you can use a template for the events to get off auto-blocking to structure this nicely. And last concept I would like to introduce is so-called fragments. Something we also know from AEM, where we have content fragments and experience fragments. And this is actually, conceptual-wise, it's pretty much the same. A fragment is a piece of content you can inject into another page and render it at whatever place you want to have it injected. Either we support having a dedicated fragment block, which has only one purpose. You get the URL of the fragment, and this fragment is injected at this page. Or you can also automatically have fragments injected if you organize them so that they can be automatically detect this. Like in this column block on the right column, there is just a URL, which is then supposed to be a fragment which is injected in this one. And with this concept, you can also sort of work around the block nesting a little bit, because the fragments is basically can hold everything as well. They can have sections, blocks, etc. So with this way, you actually can have reusable content, and you can also create it a little bit deeper nested structure. The biggest difference compared to Experience Manager and AEM offering is technically, and that is every document you actually have can be a fragment or a full website. So from the author perspective, you don't care. You don't need, the author doesn't need to decide, is this going to be a fragment or if this is going to be rendered as a full page. He just creates a document. Because the APIs we have and the rendering pipeline gives you the option to access each and every document either as a full website or as a fragment. You have both options and the full flexibility, and the author, for the author, it's totally transparent. Now, let's switch gears and talk a little bit in the last few minutes about actually how do we build the experiences. And you have seen this before. I spoke about this before already. So core web vitals and building a fast site, which is fast for user. It's not just fast delivered by using a CDN. It's also fast rendering on the browser is the goal what we would like to achieve. So we're aiming for a Lighthouse score of 100, because this gives us the most likability and the most chances that also the real users, which Google actually cares more, the core web vitals and the data they collect from the Chrome users, that's what's important for your website. That's what's important for your scoring at Google as well. And these data, and the higher ranking you get, the higher your Lighthouse score is. There's a sort of a direct, more or less direct relationship. Obviously, Google doesn't tell you all the secrets behind. But this is what we're shooting for, and the project templates we give you as a starter to start your project, they are optimized already for this. So you can only make it worse if you really try hard to make it worse. But with the tools we have, it's sort of not given, but it's at least hard to break it and hard to make it worse. So how do we actually get there? Remember this small element here, the sections, the blocks, and document content. The rendering happens in two phases. The first step is happening on our cloud, done by our pipeline. And what happens is, as I said before, the content gets injected into Content Hub and then gets rendered. And we render a very lightweight, a very low nested structure of the website, and this is happening for each and every document. And this is what Adobe basically gives you and provides you, and for the project, it's automatically part of the infrastructure. And it's pretty simple. A section is rendered as a top-level div, if you hard to see, as the child of the main element. If you have multiple sections, then they will just follow one by the other. And then within the section, we wrap the default content. This is just elements transferred one-to-one from the document into the corresponding HTML text. So a heading H1 gets a heading, and heading 2 in Word gets a H2, etc. A list gets a sorted or unsorted list tag, and so on. The only different treating is happening for blocks. So every block in the Word or Google document is rendered into its own div, again, within the section, with a class name, which is the block name. And if you have block options, then they are added to the class list as well. So it's minimum one class, which is the block name. And if you use options, then you get multiple classes. The content of the actual div then obviously depends how you structure the block, and depending how the block is organized, you get a substructure of one or multiple entries as part of this div. This is happening all by our pipeline, and this is the HTML markup which is shipped to your browser. So if you go to any site which is delivered by the edge delivery services, like our documentation site, for example, and you do view source in the browser, you will see exactly this. There's no magic, no secret behind, it's basically visible. The second phase, and this is when your project work comes in, is the so-called ELD phase, or the client-side phase, and this happens on the browser by the JavaScript you create. So we have the semantic HTML from the first step, and then we have a three-step rendering and decoration phase on the browser. And ELD stands for eager, lazy, and delayed. The eager phase is basically the phase which is optimized, and your project is optimized for generating and rendering everything which is immediately visible at first when the user comes to your site. So basically everything above the fold should be rendered in the eager phase. This is typically loading the hero image if there is a hero image on the site, the H1 or the headlines, decorating most important elements like call to action buttons on the hero, and also section metadata, and also running the auto block logic. After the eager phase, we have the lazy phase, and this is then decorating everything which is not immediately visible to the end user, which is above the fold, and we have a few, or the browser has a few more milliseconds time to render this. So this is all the other blocks which is followed when the user scrolls down. It's the footer, it's loading custom fonts, etc. And the last one, number 3, delayed, as the name says, it's the phase which is for the actually end user is not really important because it's not really influencing the experience the end user is seeing, but it's obviously important for the website and for your marketing department. This is the phase where you load all your tracking pixels, your third-party scripts, analytics, cookie consent banners, and these kind of things. How does it look like for a real project? So this is, I hope it's visible. I zoomed in. This is a rendering performance screenshot from Chrome using our boilerplate startup project. And the entire phase is basically starting from here, goes up to this little blue dot after the 3000 milliseconds. And I zoomed in into the white area for the first 2 phases. And again, the eager phase is the first phase. So from the time the user hits enter to open the URL till roughly 88, 87 milliseconds, that's in this case the eager phase. And what happens is, obviously, we load the HTML. From the head, we have 3 elements which are in the HTML head, which is 2 of our script libraries, very fine, and the global styles. Then it looks like the next element, the green bar, there is some bigger image or media element, which is in this case the hero image is loaded. The fav icon is loaded, and then there is the so-called hero block. That's the name of the first block in this website on top of the page. And this is relevant to give us a fast LCP and to render a site without layout shift and make it basically have the first impression, first contentful, meaningful pane for the user. And if this is done, the website is visible, the user can see it, everything is rendered, everything is there. Then the lazy phase kicks in, and that's the rest here of the zoomed in area. This is when all the other blocks and stuff is loaded. Like here in this case, we are loading 2 Roboto web fonts. Then we have the columns block, a cards block. The cards block has some other images included, so we're loading a few more media files, and then other CSS, etc. is followed. And because it's zoomed in, it's hardly visible. The delayed phase, it's actually this tiny little blue bar here, which is not visible here anymore because of the zoom in. This is when third-party scripts, tagging pixels, etc. are loaded. That's it from the performance perspective and from the quick introduction, the quick time I got to introduce you to Edge Delivery Service and content-based offering. So basically, quick summary, what you have seen. Adobe is providing what you previously have heard about Franklin, which is now called Edge Delivery Service. It's a little bit more decomposed and different organized, but Franklin is sort of part of it. It's the Edge Delivery Services. So the new stack for delivery. You get this in combination with decoupled content sources. So you can use it, as I've shown you, with the document-based offering. You can also connect this with your AEM offering together. And ultimately, the goal, I know this is marketing speech, but the goal of us is that you really can create fast websites, and actually also for you as a developer, it's really a joy to work with this. So my last slide, actually, how do you get started with this one? So what's next for you? It's pretty easy. I have a few links in the next slide. But actually, what you need to do to start your own project is you clone the GitHub repo from our startup project into whatever repo you want. You've cloned it locally. You start the CLI, and you're ready to start coding and building out your website. You can get this by default with a pre-set up mini content storage on Google. you can easily change this to your own Google or SharePoint folder with your own custom content, obviously. Then you develop something, you push it to a branch. Once you push it to a branch, all the tools kick in, so we automatically test the performance, we run the tests, we give you a lighthouse score, and if you are happy and maybe get the pull request approved, you match the pull request and your site is live. As simple as that. A few links. Basically, the first link is the one you can go to. It has all the documentation, links to tutorials, links to what we call the boilerplate project, which is our starter template. It has an overview about all the blocks we have default, the block collection. It has all the extra instructions, how you set up your custom CDN, how you connect this to your own SharePoint or your own Google, etc. And with that, done with the talk. Thank you very much. We have a Discord community. Feel free to join this. This is your way to connect to all the engineers from AEM, basically directly, and you can ask them questions. You can interact with them, and they are there. So we are there. The team is there to help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Markus. Yeah, we did get some questions. A lot of them I had as well as the first time seeing it. So yeah, let's pick some of them. Yeah, Henry wants to know, the public-facing website, do they need any additional metadata or elements, attributes to be able to make this work?
Short answer, usually no. Because the public-facing website, the only thing you need to make this work for your real project is you need to connect this to your domain. Everything else is built into the system. And for connecting this to the domain, you have basically two options. Either you have your own CDN already in place, Fastly, Akamai, and you connect this to it, or you have no CDN, then you can connect your DNS directly to Adobe.
Roy would like to know, are there any reference cases where the document authored content is used as experience fragment in AEM's cloud service sites?
I heard about a few, so I would like to get back to you, Roy, because I know about a few projects doing exactly this. In the current project I'm working, actually, it's a project in the migration phase, so they moved only certain areas of the site to Edge delivery service, while the rest stays on AEM Publish. But we plan to also, for example, have the footer and header shared as a fragment across. So the AEM site will use the fragments from the Edge and embed this in the site, the header and the footer delivered by the AEM Publish. I can come back to you with some more references.
Also interesting question. Why did the project name change so often from Helix to Franklin and now to Edge Delivery Services?
I'm the technical guy, so maybe something you should address to our marketing peoples. I think initially Franklin was the Adobe internal project name, and we have other project names for other kind of things. And it was maybe not even intended to be public, so I'm not the correct one to answer. But I think, and I hope Edge Delivery Service is the final name. At least that was what I'm told.
Excellent. Yeah, that's also an interesting one. Aren't there any massive amount of bugs happening because of things are wrongly formatted in the Word files or the Excels and so on, because they're not strictly following like the patterns or so?
Actually, no, because the pipeline is very restrictive. So it's filtered. It's basically sort of foolproof built that it's filtering out everything which is sort of wrongly formatted. And let's say you have a text and you format this green because you want to think this should be green on the website. This is simply taken out and filtered out. Because this is something which should be driven by the styles and the CI guidelines of your website, and the author should not free from this. So it's pretty robust that we make sure everything which shouldn't be on the website is filtered out, and either it's removed entirely or we remove the stuff around it. At least we can keep the text and can keep the image, and the stuff around every weird formatting is taken out.
How do we deal with multi-regional websites where the author wants to make changes and roll it out to multiple language copies, so like the multi-site manager story?
That's a tough one. We have multiple websites which are built with the new stack. globally. Even our own Adobe.com, for example, if you go to blog.adobe.com and business.adobe.com, that's all built on the new stack, and that's, I don't know how many languages, I think over 100 languages. This is translated. And we use two things of this. We use built-in SharePoint tools, sometimes with Power Automate workflows, sometimes without, to keep this content in sync. And we have a tiny layer as part, again, as a plugin of this Sidekick you have seen, which helps you then to organize multi-language content. The Sidekick, by the way, I forgot to mention, is something you can extend and customize as well. So you can add extra buttons like pickers, and every stuff you need for your project can be added there.
Last one. For now, are you going to be at the Meet Expert session?
Yes.
All right. So then there's possibility to ask more questions.
Sure.
So the final one. Is it possible to have dynamic sections or personalized content?
Dynamic sections, absolutely. So nothing you can render in a section or in a block, whatever you want to render. And if you want to call an API to get dynamic data, that's totally possible. And I think you will see and hear a lot about this in the talk from Mark after lunch, because he has a real-life example from building an e-commerce project, which is a lot of dynamic data. For user-generated content, the recommendation is you go with a third-party solution which is optimized for this and for the use case. Like, for example, if you want to have product reviews, then get a tool for doing exactly this and not build this into the system.
Thank you, Markus.
Thank you.